Virginia Morales. And I'd like to read something. Wishing you comfort in the loss of your mother. The heart aches for what it has loved and lost. Gently wrap yourself in the warm memories of your mother. Let the love that held you close continue to bring strength and comfort. And those words are resounding because it's the comfort that we want in family and friends. It's our ability to cope with losses like this. I have to say that because of family and friends and my mother and my father, I am a stronger person today. They have helped me grow as a person. They have helped me live life. So when we think about our parents and our friends and family, let's remember this, that each of us has something to contribute to each and every one of ourselves. Life moves on. Remember, I've been told before, nobody can ever take your memories away from you. So I would like to talk about Virginia Morales, but before I do, I'd like to see if my older brother, Roy, he's the first, so I think he should go first. And he's also the oldest, only by 9 months. You guys figure that one out.
Well, I was going to remind everybody that 9 months as well. But I do have it on you. I've been thinking all week, since she passed away onto our Lord, what I would say. And if you knew my mom, she's pretty frank about everything. We even thought about in the prayer card, you know, what she would really say, but we weren't allowed to put it. I think the first time I realized how much my mom loved my dad, I want to say I was probably 3 years old, maybe 4 years old. We were living, where's Aunt Martha, Vicki, we were living over on Maple. And as young couples, you know, we tend to argue with each other early on in our marriage, and it was no different with my parents. And they were arguing a little bit, and you know how my dad can get a little hyper sometimes, and he got a little too hyper, and he passed out. And I think that was probably the Lord saying, just take a break from what was going on. And I remember him falling and hitting his head on one of my old metal toy trucks, and even though in the heat of the moment, my mom was there with my dad, holding him, saying, Roy, wake up, because he had passed out. I knew then how much she devoted herself to my dad, how much she loved her, and how much she loved him. You couldn't have a better mother and a better father who was always there for you. We were an athletic family. You name it, we were playing it, running it, wrestling. But more important, we had parents that are always devoted to us. My dad, the coach, my mom, working the concession stands. And not only for us, she was there for the other children as well. And we were very, very fortunate. We belonged to the YMCA, and we had friends that were basically trust fund babies, is what I call them now. They were very well off, but their parents were so busy they were never there for them. And I am so fortunate that my dad and my mother were always there for me, my brothers as well. You can recall they were there cheering us on. We went everywhere in basketball, Wichita Falls. I think Paul remembers that. Austin, Houston for a wrestling match where my Aunt Sally and Uncle Joe would meet us. She was always there. She was an inspiration, and she was my biggest fan. She was my biggest fan in athletics. She was my biggest fan in politics. I miss her so much, but at the end of the day, I hope what I learned from her that's been passed on to my children, that family comes first. And she showed us that. my cousins, who we consider, brothers and sisters, Lydia and Fred, she didn't hesitate to bring them in, and we were there together as a family. I remember she was always there for me and my brother when we were ill with the measles or the mumps. Even when I hurt my arm in football, she was there to help me with my homework in the evenings. I couldn't write with my right hand, so she taught me how to write with my left hand. I remember going to our family doctor, Dr. Hampton, on many occasions. He was downtown, because she worked downtown with C.M. Yater Jewelers. And for some reason, we always had, early on in the 60s, we had, I don't know, these little warts that would end up in our mouths, and we'd go there. Dr. Hampton would take care of us. You remember that, Danny? And she'd take us out to lunch. But you got to picture this. This was the 60s, okay? She took us to some restaurant with our co-workers, and I swear, it was like, well, kind of like I was in heaven, but they were all dressed in bikinis. This was the 60s, but Virgie took us there, and good meal, but some of the young ones probably couldn't understand what the 60s were like, but they were interesting. There's many, many stories about my mom. There was another time that I remember she was there for the family. It was late one Sunday night, and I got into a fight with a couple of guys out in the front yard. And here comes my dad running out of the house. My mom following him, all out there too, to help me. But that's how I remember my mom. She was always there, covering my back. I remember, well, that's another story. I just don't know what else to say about my mom. She was the perfect lady. She was, as her family knows, she was the crabber of the family. If it was time to go crabbing, she was there. And she taught us how to do it, and I taught my children how to do it. We know when she came to Dallas with my dad, she started working right away at an old retail store by the name of Teich's. I remember going there for the Santa Claus photo there at Teich's. And for those who don't know, that's like a Sears, or it's just another retail store. And then she took up an ad out of the, maybe, I don't know what it was called then, but we call it Texas Unemployment. And it was a job to work for a jeweler. And it wasn't just no other jeweler, it was C.M. Yater downtown. And he was a man that catered to the oil and gas man of Dallas, Texas. And that's where she refined her art and learned it. And she got so good at it that she eventually opened up her own store. So I was very fortunate coming from a family of entrepreneurs and a family of union workers. Gave me the most of both worlds. I love my mother deeply, as many of you did, and we're going to miss her greatly. So I want to again thank all of you for coming last night if you were here, and coming today for her celebration, because now she's with our Lord. I want to thank you so much. Danny, do you want to introduce the next speaker?
Thank you. Roy neglected to say one thing about my birth, because first of all, let me acknowledge the Morales side, the Morales family. Would you please stand? Okay. And then I would like to acknowledge the Carrillo side of the family. Would you please all stand? These are the people that have known my parents the longest. And we've had good times and we've had bad times. But I'm going to tell you, the good times have far outweighed the bad times. And I want to say we all love you so much. Thank you. Roy neglected to tell you something else, and it concerns my Uncle Pete. Because my dad was in the Coast Guard, and all of a sudden I was ready to come and be born. Or was it my Uncle John? I'm lost. But I remember it was foggy on the seawall, and they were driving me to St. Mary's. And the next day was Thanksgiving, and all my mom could think about was, I'm going to miss Mama's dressing. God, Mom loved food. The next person I'd like to have come up, and we'll always call him the baby of the family. And there's a story about it because there was a tornado coming, and my mom said, put the baby in the closet. He was in his 20s. But my little brother, Paul.
I think, like, for the last 14 years, I've volunteered at a program where I've learned to speak from my heart. But I don't know if I've learned to speak from a broken heart. There's a special bond between a mom and the baby of the family. She took care of me in so many different ways. You can see mostly food. That was her love medicine. She connected us in that way. And up till the very end, there's still food there for me. So she just loved to cook, and she loved to take care of her family. I was thinking the other day, I remembered I had a memory of her doing This Little Piggy Went to Market in our bedroom when we lived on Joanna in Farmers Branch. I always remember her at our football games, wrestling, basketball plays, school events. Dad and her were always there. Mostly, I remember what a loving and accepting woman she was. She always said all she wanted for us boys was to be happy. She said, y'all are gonna do what you want to do. I can't stop that, but I want y'all to be happy. And I hope that I've honored her that in the last few years, because I have been. I will never forget when I had to move in with them. She always offered her home up to me if something happened. She said I was horrible with money, and she was right. But I moved in with them, and I ended up having pneumonia. And I remember waking up one night, looking up with her and Dad standing over me, taking care of me. And I knew right then what unconditional love really looked like. Because I didn't think I was going to have those type of parents. And I did, and I was so lucky and fortunate to have them. She taught me how to be strong. She taught me a faith. She said, I don't care what you believe in, but have faith. And she was okay with whatever faith I had as long as I had it. She taught me about family first. I just remember so many trips and vacations with her. Driving to California in the back of the car for 2 days straight with Danny. I have a picture of her, and I guess her and Dad got in a little fight, and I looked at the picture and I see her in the background flipping my dad off. I love that picture because that's who she was. She taught me to speak my mind, and just like her, I don't hold back. I say I say whatever I feel and move on, because life is too short, and I know that now more than ever. We talked about this day, and I would tell her I don't want to hear about it, and she'd say, it's going to happen, Pa, and have no problem with it, because she was okay with it. She was very happy with what she's done. She was happy with us boys, with Lydia and Fred. She was happy that her boys were happy. She loved her grandkids. Madison, Caitlin, and Kyle, she loved y'all. She loved her brothers and sisters so much. So much. She always wanted to take care of y'all. She loved you, Corey. She always tried to make a special meal for you with no meat. Always saying, can he eat this? She loved my friends. Sometimes I wonder what I'm going to do. And I'm scared. But I got this big man right here to help. And he's going to take care of me, and I'm going to take care of him. Because he's become the most loving, supportive father a man could know. I've got my relationship with my brothers now. You know, I was pretty far behind them, I think 7 years. So they were pretty much gone when I was a teenager. But I'm glad I have them back now. And Fred and Lydia, my brother and sister. Y'all are there for everyone. Y'all are there for us all the time. Mom loved you so much. She would do anything for y'all. She told me to take care of the family, and that's what I plan to do. That's what I plan to do. Thank you all for coming up. I appreciate you all being here. She would love this. She would love this a lot. Except she'd be wanting to get home and cook for everybody too. Thank you.
It's at this time I would like to invite any other family member or friend to come forward and speak if they have any words to say about Virginia Morales. I have one. Jackie would like to.
One thing about Virgie Morales is she loved everyone and she loved to cook, just like you said. We met her when she worked at C.M. Yater. Roy and the kids and Virgie, we all were at everything, whatever it was, whatever trip it was, whoever wedding. And I think one thing that Virgie would like everyone to know that she loved life every minute, and she enjoyed each time she got together with you. And that's what I want you all to remember. Take in your heart on the journey of life that she loved each of you and to enjoy life each day as it comes, because we don't know how long we have. But I have a lot of her jewelry. My mother was the first one that met her, and my mother's 92 and couldn't be here. But if she would been able to be here, she would have been the one speaking instead of myself. I just want each of you to know that we love you and we'll be with you on this journey.
Jackie's mother, Dorothy, would always call the store and she'd go, "Is she busy?" You know, and I'd say, "Okay, not for you. She's ready to talk to you." You know, so it was always funny because if I ever had that tone, they were kind of alike. They were very direct.
Yes,
you know, just like, "Is she
They were
busy?" And I'd have to
sisters.
say,
Yes, they
"I'll
were.
get her for you, Dorothy."
My name is Joe Torres, and my wife Mary and I have we moved to Palmer Branch in 1980, so we've been Roy and Virgie's neighbors for over 36 years now. And Mary couldn't be here today. She was here last night, but she couldn't be here today. My grandson was having a little medical procedure, so she wanted me to be with my daughter during this time. But you know, you just couldn't find any better neighbors. You know, I don't know what we're going to do now. We're going to really miss Virgie tremendously. But it didn't take me long to figure out. I've heard a lot of people talking about her cooking. It didn't take me long to find out that she does love to cook. And she'd call me over and she'd call the house and say either Paul or Danny, they didn't come over. So whenever they didn't come over, I benefited, you know, because she cooked on Sundays. She cooked on Sundays, and she'd always cook a lot more than she always. I cooked more than I really should have, whatever. So in a way, I was glad when they didn't go over because here I'd go. I'd walk right over there, and she made her soup, and I love soup because I know there was at least during these years at least three times, maybe 4 times that I don't know whether ESP or what it was or how we knew, but there'd been times when Mary was gone, I'd be there and I'd get me a can of Campbell's noodle soup, you know, and I'd be walking over to the kitchen and the phone would ring and it'd be Virgie, and she said, I made a whole bunch of soup, you know, and of course I said, well, I had to tell her. I said, well, you know what, you believe it or not, but I had a can of soup. I was going to make some soup, so she would always, you know, it was just timing. I don't know what happened, what the timing was, but I hated it. I wanted to tell her. I did tell her, but I said, I don't know what she thought I was just pulling her leg or telling her a lie or because I wanted that soup, you know. But I said I had a can of soup in my hand, you know, and it's a Campbell noodle soup. But she did. I benefited a lot from her, and we're going to miss her. We're going to miss her tremendously. But we'll always be there, you know, for Roy. And I thought I had something else I was just going to say other than I was just, there was times when I'm glad I didn't get to see Paul and Danny because, like I said, it came to my house, you know. I wore a path across going back and forth from my house to her. Thank you.
Anyone else? Uncle Pete.
Glad to see everybody here and to celebrate the life of my sister, Virginia. Of course, we always called her Virgie, and wanted to straighten a few things out about her cooking. When we were young, my father passed away. I was 9 years old, so Virgie or Sally did the cooking, and Virgie did a lot. And I want you to know that her go-to meal was Spam and a can of spinach. Now, to this day, I get sick when I see that because we ate so much of it. I remember in high school, she took home ec. She came home and she burned grilled cheese for us. And she was the first one to make the tuna fish casserole for us. We were all surprised that it tasted pretty good, but we made the mistake of telling her that it was pretty good. So we had it a little bit more often than we would prefer. Over the years, she tried to cook a lot of the things from my mother that my mother tried to teach her, but she was not very handy. But talking to her sons later on, I find that she grew into cooking, and I didn't argue because you know, your mother's cooking is one thing, and then your sister who attempts that is another thing. But you know, it's good food, and she always did plenty, and she would feed anybody. She was very good about that. We all loved her. We loved to take her crabbing. When we were kids, we would get the old tin tub full of crabs. We'd catch a couple of hundred crabs in a couple of hours down there in Galveston, off of 37th Street and 39th Street. And we'd wade out in the water, and we'd have our crab lines tied to the, there were these poles that were sitting there from World War II, because we had the Fort Crockett was right there. And they had these poles where they strung barbed wire and stuff. They took the barbed wire away, but they left the poles, so we'd tie our lines to that on occasion. Or we'd go out on the jetties where we weren't supposed to be, because there was a big sign to stay off and away 200 feet. Well, we'd go right up to it, of course. And we all caught crabs, and Virgie she just loved it. It was unbelievable to see the smile on her face, and to see see how happy she was in the yard when we were, after my mother boiled all the crabs, we'd sit at a big table in the backyard of the back porch, and we'd clean them and pick them. And we picked them because my mother made a great stuffed crab. I always thought that stuffed crab came with hamburger meat, okay, because my mother would mix it with hamburger meat. I realized later on that that was a stretcher because we had such a big family. But to this day, I prefer the stuffed crab with hamburger rather than just plain. So anyway, she was a good sister. I remember when I was young and had a personal tragedy, her and Roy were with me and talked me into some semblance of calmness, and I still remember that. So she tried to take care of us as best she could, and she was only a girl of like 12 or 13 at the time when my father passed away. And my mother was working 2 jobs. So her and Sally kind of raised the family, and Frances had to go to work early. Yeah, Frances graduated at 16 from high school and went to work, and they thought she was 18, of course. So, and that's what we told them, so that she could get the job, and she did. You worked at the candy counter at C.P. Evans, right? Yeah, that's correct, yeah. So once in a while we get a piece of candy. But anyway, she's a great gal, and most people that knew her loved her. Very forward, very frank, and you know what her favorite word was. I won't mention it. But she said it all the time, and at any time and anywhere. But anyway, we all loved her. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I was actually hoping you would come up first. I'm a little nervous right now, but my name is Daniel. I'm Virginia's, Grandma Virgie's grandson in a second. My older brother Roy is sitting next to me. To me, that's kind of poignant because growing up, I'm a little fair complected. And I had kind of a role, I think, in my family. It was a hard one to find, but I felt like I kind of grew up in my older brother's shadow. I came one summer, and I realize now that my grandma loved me because I came back overweight. The best memory, though, was when I came up 2 years ago with my son. My grandpa and I, we sat in the living room watching football, talking, which was a good moment for me because I hadn't had that. But my son and my grandma sat in the other room, just hung out for hours. She gave him a bunch of seashells to take home, which he has on his nightstand by his bed today. And that's a lot of meaning to me now, and I never realized how much she loved seashells until just kind of walking around and actually looking. She gave us tins of lasagna and all kinds of food to take home for the hotel that had a mini fridge, so we had to finish that off that night. But I think there's the most poignant thing I can say is there's a lot of people in this room, some married into the family, some not anymore, some that are divorced from it. But you didn't divorce from her. And I think that says a great deal about the type of person she was. That you would come to her house on a Thanksgiving or a Christmas holiday, and she'd cook for you as if you were her daughter, her son. I didn't even know my cousins were my cousins until someone told me, and I thought they were my uncles and my aunts. I, to this day, can't explain it to other people, but that's just how it is. To be concise, I guess I'll end on this for it. Right now, with her passing, there's a big gap in the family. There's a spot to be filled, and not one person can do it on their own, and nor should they. It's going to take a connection. It's going to take commitment to call, to check in, to be with the people that we care about, to create new traditions in honor of her, not in spite of her being there. I do want to share a quote that's important to me. I don't know if anyone is familiar with C.S. Lewis, but he wrote a book called A Grief Observed. It was a journal about the passing of his wife. And for me, this quote kind of resounds about the role we will have moving forward. For the greater the love, the greater the grief, and the stronger the faith, the more savagely will Satan storm its fortress. My grandfather's going to need everybody. We're all going to need everybody. It's not a fortress of stone or homes or phone calls. It's people. And I just ask that for myself that I make the commitment and band together and connect. Thank you.
I can be much better on the emotional front. My name is Nancy Brockles Rathmanner. I've known the Morales family been married 35 and a half years, so just say 36 years, because she made both my wedding ring and my husband's. I knew her through my mother when she worked at CM Yater. Now that I've heard the stories, it is no wonder that they stayed friends until they both have left us. My mom was the same way. Said her piece. Didn't matter who it was. I'm sure Danny knew who it was when he answered the phone with her. Never met a stranger. Always wanted to take care of people. Mother introduced her entire family to Virginia. We all have her creations, countless. I'm not even going to try to think of what she made for our family. 4 other brothers and sisters. One of my brothers was here last night. I don't know if he spoke, but Paul, I understand, the youngest of 5. But there's 7 years difference between the oldest and me. No twins. But anyway, Virginia was a sweetheart. I found out she handled softball, and no wonder that I had a special connection with her, because I played softball for 50 years. 40, yeah, about 50. 40, 50, lose track of time. And my parents went all over creation for us. So Virginia, very definitely a special woman. We will miss her all.
Nancy's mother was a hoot too, because we'd have this open house, and my pa would be serving wine in the back, and as soon as Lois would come in, she'd go, "Is he in the back?" And she goes, "I can hear him. I'm back there." So it was something. It was a special time, and it was a great time for people to see each other. And my mom really enjoyed the open houses at the store. Anyone else? I do want to acknowledge another family who's known my mother for a long time, because when she was downtown at CM Yater, there was the Holzapfel family. And as the engraver of probably the entire Texas area, they go back generations. And would you please stand, because you meant a lot to my mom. They go back a long, long way. Thank you for your friendship. Okay. This one may be a little longer. Oh, like, well, she should be the oldest, but I am the oldest, so I'll have to. We're 2 weeks apart. But my cousin Lydia, who is my sister, and we grew up together, and she'd like to say a few words.
Okay, I'm not a speaker, so this is going to be hard. I'm more of a bosser. In fact, my daughter said the last few days, "Mom, calm down. You're so bossy. You're being so bossy. You're telling people what to do." I asked my daughter, I said, what is your best Virgie story? What's your funny Virgie story? And she said, I don't have a Virgie funny story. She was never funny to me. That was just her. You know, if she had 2 different shoes on, if she was running around in her bra, I mean, that was just her. She influenced people. I remember my daughter was 4 years old when the teacher called me in and said, "Do you guys eat a lot of potato chips at home?" And I said, "No, not really." And she said, "When your daughter gets upset or frustrated, she says the word chips." So I had to talk to Aunt Virgie, and I had to tell Aunt Virgie, could you not say, of course Aunt Virgie wasn't saying chips. Could you see, you know. But Aunt Virgie, of course, said, I don't give a chip. There were, one of my stories is, I think I was like 7 or 8, and we were at a Pop Warner football. Uncle Roy was the coach. Roy didn't do something right on the field. Uncle Roy was griping at him. Roy, of course, smarted off to him. Uncle Roy tried to kick him. Roy started running. This is during the football game. Uncle Roy started chasing Roy. Aunt Virgie comes running out of the concession stand and starts chasing. She's behind Uncle Roy. Danny gets up from the stands with me and starts chasing his mom, going, Mom, Mom. Then Paul starts chasing. And so here is Roy, Uncle Roy, Aunt Virgie, Danny, and Paul running around the field screaming. And you would think, oh no, that's about, no, that was a good time. That was a good time. That was good. But there is one thing I want to say about my aunt, that all of you, everybody in my family, I'm the oldest of 9. Aunt Virgie's door was always open to anybody. Her door was always open. My brothers and my sisters and my aunts, they all know that. Her door was always open. She took care of my grandmother. She took care of her mother. She took care of me. She took care of everybody. If my mom ever needed her, all she had to do was pick up the phone and call. And I know you all know that. And I'm glad Danny acknowledged the hose apples, because my first job, I remember I was at Aunt Virgie's, and it was on my 18th birthday, and she said, you need to get a job. And I said, okay. She goes, today. I said, today's my birthday. She goes, I don't give a chip. So I started working for the hose apples on my 18th birthday because of Aunt Virgie. So, and I just want to thank everybody for coming. And Lorette said that, why did they put makeup on her? You know that she's looking up going, what the, you know. But my uncle looked at her when he came up here and he said, she's so pretty. And she is, she looks so pretty. And I just want to thank everybody for coming.
As you can see, some of our stories overlap. But what I want to do is give you the specifics about these acts, because they really mean a lot more. I'm going to start off with Mom the Fearless, because it was when we were about, I was probably about 5, Roy's probably at 6, and we weren't not very rich. We were actually really pretty poor. And my dad was working the late night shift, and I didn't understand why then, but it was for the pay differential. And so my mom was taking care of us at home. And mind you, my mom was very small. Don't ever upset a mother. Something happened and there was a noise in the garage. And my mom grabbed Roy, not myself. He probably doesn't remember the story, but I do because I have the artifact for it. She pushed us into the kitchen, got us into the corner. And God, if Xena Warrior Princess was ever born, it was then. Because my mom grabbed these two items and she walked over to the door in the kitchen that connected the garage. And she turned on the light and she walked out, and of course Roy and I are so stupid we're walking right behind her. But she walked into that garage with these two implements because she was going to protect her boys. And that was going to be the way it was for the rest of our lives. So these two items mean a lot to me, and I keep them at the house. This is the one thing I grabbed when I left the home. But my mom was a lioness. And I'm glad I wasn't the person out there in that garage, because I would have been just shish kebab. But that was my mom. And through the years, this is what we were going to see. And in many facets you'll understand. Mom would be looking out for us in almost every aspect of our lives. You could see some of it was cooking. I just learned to work out. Just to give you a little history of my mom and dad's life. As they grew up, again, they were not wealthy. Both their fathers died when they were all fairly young. So my dad had to go to work at an early age to help support the family. On my mom's side, they worked. They had one advantage. They lived in Galveston. They had my Uncle Mike. And Uncle Mike taught them how to fish, how to shrimp, how to crab. Well, they just thought this, people just lived like this. They didn't know people were getting top dollar for this food someplace else. When you think about that, it was all survival. And that's the thing about my family. They've learned me they taught me how to survive. And my mom especially, she taught me how to survive. As we grew up, my father taught us sports: football, basketball, baseball. And when we wrestled, Roy was pretty good at it. Paul and I just laid down our backs and got pinned and got it over with. Why exhaust yourself? My mom taught us how to crab. Yes, she taught us how to crab, but Peter would not like her because guess what? She liked to go get the horse meat to use as bait. Every time we went to Galveston, we had to find a pet store and find a horse meat so we could crab. But she loved to crab. And the Corella side taught us how to fish. I'm not going to say it, Uncle Pete will get mad at me, but yes, the women in the family are the better fisher people. My mom and dad also did something when we were younger, because it taught us how to be a close-knit family. But first, let me digress just a little. They grew up because they both had strong mothers. My Grandma Tom and my Grandma Luz raised these children by themselves, got to work every day. So they taught them a very strong work ethic, and they taught them how to love. And we're all still together because of, I believe, these two strong grandmothers. As I said, they did something amazing. Because when we were younger, my dad's mom, Grandma Luz, and my abuelita, my great-grandmother, came to live with us. And we were still not even 10 years old, and they came to live with us. And it's rare to find that you would have a mother-in-law, and I'm not how to say her, but a great-grandmother staying in the same household with a group of young children and their family. It was lucky that both my abuelita, my great-grandmother, died at home. And later on, when we moved to Harlan, and Grandma went with us, Grandma Luz also died at home. So it's been a long family journey. and we've all stayed close, and we've all learned how to bond together. It seems we've always had people in the household. My cousin Fred and cousin Lydia came to stay with us. That's how we grew closer. When we started working or going to college, Roy came back with Kathy I'm going to call you Boo, but it's actually Roy the Third. They came to live with us. So we all grew up in 2912 Harley. We all lived there. And when we left a very big empty nest. But guess what? We still came back at holidays. Okay, it's all about the food. Actually, I'm not sure how my mom maintained her sanity. Because she worked full-time too, and she was doing a full house load. She was an amazing woman because she balanced all of that, and she even balanced all of that when we started working together at our jewelry store that we started in 1982. She had figured that she could do it. Although my dad kept his job at the printing company because we just weren't quite sure if it was going to work. I was still going to college, but I said, you know what, I'm studying accounting. I can help her with the books. It was just a temporary position. No. I stayed. We formed a bond, we formed a relationship of working together for over 34 years. Just seems like yesterday. Formative years were difficult, and it had many ups and downs. But her faith never wavered. We always had the support of family. My brother Paul worked with us for a short time, and then my cousin Fran came and worked with us. And she lived with them. You know, it was great because they both loved to cook. The business finally stabilized, and I've been blessed that people who came became our friends. This was important for her. She was Virgie, and she cared about what they needed, always wanting things perfect for them. She would even put the final polishing touches on every piece of jewelry. I have to say something else. When she came to Arlington with her jewelry store, people followed her. People who she had known for a long, long time in Dallas came. But again, that was because she was Virgie. Someone has said that my mom never did anything for herself, but she really did. She gave herself the ability to change. As we progressed in business, she finally let her creative side be unleashed. She allowed herself to become, yes, an artist. She was so excited about our inventory because we barely buy finished goods anymore. We actually do our own inventory. So she was so excited about what we were doing. It was her way of putting a stamp on each piece, her personality on each piece of jewelry. I'm just sorry that she will not be able to see something we were both designing last week, and I was going to have it finished. It's a bracelet that she looked at and said, this is going to be beautiful. And of course, I'm going to name it Virgie. When I was in the hospital last week, I looked at something. They finally left, and I had my alone time with my mom. I kissed her on the forehead. I raised the blanket. I grabbed her hand. I looked down, and I said, oh, Mom, you didn't get the polishing compound in between your nails. But that was my mom. She always worked with her hands. She didn't care if they were dirty. She always worked with her hands. And even though that polishing compound was up there, that was, again, her stamp. She always worked, and she worked to the end. I don't think she would have had it any other way. One more thing about my mom. She allowed me to grow. Mr. LaPasta got me into Rotary. My mom made sure that I would have the full experience of Rotary. She sacrificed for me so that I could do Rotary. And I've met so many great people, so many friends through Rotary. I've had experiences around the world because of her sacrifice. I have friends around the world because of her sacrifice. That was my mother. Some Virgieisms. I just made that word up. I can't say it, but others had, and it begins with SH. My dad saying, "Damn it, Virgie, your shoelace is untied. You're going to trip." "Oh, Roy, shut up. Mind your own business." "Shut up, Danny. You think you know everything." One of her best Virgieism, the silent treatment. I knew when I had crossed the line. I'm second best at it. After her day off, she'd call. "Did anybody call for me? It's 4 o'clock. Are we having wine?" When I called on Fridays to see what was going on, I said, "Mom, you didn't mop, did you?" "I did. You have other things to do." She loved to cook, so she would bring me meals for the week. I'd always pick up something, but when she saw what I was eating, she'd look at me and she'd say, "Why are you eating that? I brought you a steak and baked potatoes." I said, "Mom, I'm a grown man. I can decide what I want to eat." "Okay, but you'll have the steak and baked potatoes tomorrow." Calling on her day off. "How's it going?" "Can't talk now, Mom. I'm busy with customers." Response, "Great, I lit my candles." "Mom, I made a sale." "I know, I lit my candles." That was Mom. She did so much. She cared so much. She loved the business. She loved her family, her friends. She loved her customers who became her friends. And she loved all the people who worked with us. She loved to create, and she always loved to put the finishing touches on all she did. As I think about it right now, we are all her candles, and she has lit us up with her love, and all these flames are bright. Mom, we all will always love you. We will always remember you. Thank all of you for coming. God bless.
Thank you all. I know that at these times it just seems like it's final, but as I said, nobody could ever take your memories away. And she is here. And every time I look at jewelry or every time I see something at the store, it's going to be a great remembrance. Because I'm a lucky son that I saw my mom almost every day. Again, thank you for coming. God bless you.
Thank you.